Hey, welcome in, folks. This is Babbaginator. We're in the Long Dark. We're currently hanging out at PV. I completely forgot that we had guts and saplings to drop here, so let's drop these. They're not going to be ready for a while, so... And we'll be back soon enough. Okay, let's see what else we can repair here. Oh, I totally forgot. I haven't grabbed my water. I have to... Me in real life. I forgot to grab my water. I'll be back here in a quick second. Where are all my folders? Why is it not loading those screenshots? Weird. Okay, I'll be back. Hey, we're back. Hey, good to see you, Roller. I started the stream and then realized I forgot to bring my water along, so it's like kind of not be in good shape. I'll be dehydrated. It's been a busy day. I've been
This pack is getting kind of heavy.
spending the day getting ready. Tomorrow morning, I fly out, head to Montreal for a week. There'll be no streams. Then for next week, yeah, I'll be busy taking a class, a week-long class on TEI, which is text encoding, which is take a historical or literary text or a government text of some sort, something that has a lot of subtext and context, additional information that you might want present in a digital version of the text so you understand more about what's going on. So like poetry is like a really great example of this, like passages from Shakespeare or from William Blake or something like that. Or from me, maybe. I don't know. And then you just provide additional, it's like creating layers of additional embedded meaning so that you can then have a digital reader be able to encounter it and peel back layers or be able to highlight layers. Anyways, I don't know if I'm going to enjoy it. I know it is a complete... It's another side of the larger field of digital scholarship, and it's one I've never formally been trained in. So I figure I might as well take the class and learn and then decide if it's something I'm interested in spending more time with. There's also been, I'd say maybe about 10, 15 years ago, there was a big uptick in interest in it. And then in the last 5 years, there's been kind of a questioning about whether or not it's the best way to do this type of work. That being said, I do think it is a fun exercise. Ooh, I thought of another way to do it that might be interesting. I might want to do it as, see if I can use it to do translation. So I have 17 different translations of the same poem, different author, different translators, attempts at translating it. And I think it might be interesting to approach it like that. Anyway, so I'll prepare 2 or 3 different things that might work. Then spend the week working on it in the class.
Starting to feel numb.
Yeah, I've been seeing all sorts of weird warnings going out. Montreal is in the middle of a summer squall, big storm, wind and rainstorm going on there. And while I'll be there, it will be a mix of super hot weather with rain. So it's not really ideal, but I'll be indoors most of the time. But still, I'm getting around on public transit, and
I'm not sure I can carry much more.
So we'll see. Manitoba got baseball-sized hail? Wow. I'm grateful my car is parked so deep underground it never sees the light of day. Okay, let's see. We've got an extra can here. So, yeah, packing for this trip has been kind of a headache. Oh, you want to see prime real estate? Let me show you. I recently, so a few weeks back, I got this really fantastic sunrise photo from my apartment window, and I mean, it's so awesome looking that I thought maybe I'll even use it as a backdrop sometime for my for my webcam, when I'm in Zoom calls and things like that. So I'll show you what it looks like. Let's see here. That's the view. Isn't that wild? That's like the best part of the apartment is the view. It's a little odd shaped. It's kind of small in places. It could use more storage. But it has this incredible view. Yeah. So. And, when I moved here, I was like thinking, what do I want out of an apartment? If I'm going to be here maybe a year, who knows? Maybe I get to stay longer. But it might just be a year. What do I want? And I thought, I want to come home to some place that I want to be home. That, like, feels like a, I could relax. And I kind of have that. Like, the only thing I would change is that I would probably, and I didn't buy this on purpose. I think I mentioned before, I didn't buy a sofa on purpose. But if I were to know that I was going to stay here like another year, and if the price were right, to justify staying here for another year and not move to a different place, I would buy maybe a love seat, and then I could properly I would get rid of some of the extra chairs. There was a time where I thought I was just going to host D&D in my living room, but I've since realized we have this lounge area in the building that is so much better for hosting events like that I never really need to, unless I have a dinner party, I really don't need to, a dinner, like a big dinner table, big dining table and lots of chairs. I can actually get rid of most of that and really downsize. I'd probably keep the table, but I just won't fold out the leaves and get rid of most of the chairs. And then I would probably buy a love seat. And, that's probably what I would do. And then I'd have I'd have the windows in the evening or early morning. I'd have the windows open and I'd be able to enjoy just lounging and reading in the living room. I think that would be kind of cool. Right now, it's not really ideal for that. I have one semi-comfortable chair, but it'd be better. Okay. Do we want to stay here longer? No, I don't think so. Hey, thanks, Bear. Yeah, good to see you. Is everyone else? And thanks for the bits. Welcome. Is everyone excited about the upcoming new season for Alone? I'm looking forward to it. This is apparently a championship season, and they're going to go back to, I think it's the Arctic. And we should see. I'm hoping it's going to be a good run. But yeah. Let's see. I don't know. I can't remember. You also stream? Yeah, you do. Okay. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I think it'll be pretty awesome.
Do you want to be awake, my friend, or do you like being like that?
Thank you. Oh god.
Ow. Right. I would like to thank my friend, thank you. Whatever. I'll die too.
Oh well.
Ooh, if I'm not careful, I'll die too.
I shall remember your noble cause,
yeah.
Becky.
I died for my friend to rescue him.
I wonder if I can drop any of this gear.
Oh, yeah. Let's head to the cave. We still do not have a bedroll. So we are marching around hoping to find a bedroll somewhere. Okay. So I was saying at the top of the stream that I am headed to Montreal for a week, and I leave tomorrow morning. So this is my last stream for about a week. I'll be back next Sunday. Not this Sunday, but the following Sunday. And this is not looking good. Yeah, I hope it's a good one. I'm there for a week-long course that I'm taking. Just learning a new skill for work, and it's for the Digital Humanities Summer Institute, which is basically summer camp for geeks, librarian geeks mostly. It's a lot of fun. Anyways, I have a handful of friends that I've met over the last 2 years, and am looking forward to catching up with them. There's some projects I had thought I'd have time to finish up that I have not had time to finish up, but well, that's how it goes. Never been. I've been there last year, and the year before that, our conference was in Victoria, BC. So I've only been in Montreal once. And the last time I was there, I stayed in the on-campus dorms at University of Montreal. And it was a big mistake because the on-campus dorms felt like prison cells, and were very uncomfortable. And they were located pretty far from. It was a long walk from the dorms to the to where we had our classes. So this year, I decided I would book an Airbnb off campus that was close to transit, and just focus on having a more comfortable stay. But the downside is that it's still.
This pack is getting kind of heavy.
Yeah, I mean, they gave us the thinnest of blankets or quilts for the bed, and bed was small and cramped and not very comfortable. And there was no air conditioning. I mean, the place that I'm staying at also does not have air conditioning. I guess it's Montreal. It just doesn't have air conditioning. But it looks a little bit more roomy and friendly, so. It has a kitchen, so maybe I might cook some of the time. I don't know. This is work-related, so they're going to cover most of my expenses, which is great. So I may not actually cook that much at all. You know. Oops, that's not what we wanted. I find it funny, we could totally tear apart that stool, but, where is it? You can't break a broom with your bare hands. weird. Yeah, I think we finished, I think those are still early days. Yeah, I'm spoiled. I just really can't imagine. I've done it before. I've lived places with no AC, but oh boy. Once you have decent AC, you really can't go back. You got several games you have to finish? Finish as in playthroughs or finish as in, write? Like code? Because I've got both. I've got a long list of games that I've started and haven't finished. And then I've also got a number of, the last, I don't know how long it's been now. 5 or 6 years, I've been doing interactive fiction games, and I've got a few projects that I need to finish. I really do. Some of them were meant to be quick and easy to get done, and then I made them needlessly complicated. One of them I started a couple years ago, and I got a good start on it, but it kind of stalled, and when I went back to look at it this summer, I realized the problem was that I had not plotted it out very well. I had sort of these very loose concepts, and I was creating more of a mini game in some parts that was not actually contributing to the story, or it was like a distraction. I needed to make the parts, the different parts of the story, the different arcs of the story, make more sense, to have more like connection and more purpose. So like they need to be distinct. They needed to move forward plot wise, and let the player really feel like their decisions are meaningful. But they also needed some element that was fun. So I think I spent too much time on the first section, and I really didn't think my way through what I wanted to do with the second and third sections. So yeah, many years ago, I lived in Los Angeles, and my first job out of university with my undergraduate, I spent a year looking for work, and then I landed a job in Los Angeles working for a company that made children's educational games and children's entertainment. So it was like grade-based learning games, like I worked for the company that made Knowledge Venture, or made Jumpstart. So I worked on a number of Jumpstart titles, and then we were bought out and merged with a few other companies, and then we were all part of the umbrella of Vivendi Universal Games. So they owned us, but they also owned Blizzard and Sierra. And so back then, even though we were a relatively small piece of the larger gaming picture, we were all part of the same work environment where we were definitely overworked as programmers. So anyways, I had the opportunity to work on smaller titles. And the one thing about working for like a kids entertainment or kids education or edutainment, however you wanted to call it, company is that unlike big AAA titles, these are titles that go from concept to release in about 7 or 8 months, which is an unheard of, ridiculously fast pace for game development. So we were cranking out new titles every 7 or 8 months. And sometimes I was working on 2 games at the same time. Now, these were very much hub and spoke, where we would have a central sort of like nexus or meeting point, like the hub. And then from there, you would go out to these mini games or these activities, and then it would feed into a larger narrative. And the activities were meant to like help people memorize or learn concepts. And so within the company, we frequently refer to that as drill and kill, where they're mostly memorization drill exercises, but we try to make them more fun, try to make them a little bit different. Some of the games or the mini games that we came up with were quite classic, and others were much more like unique. We developed things on our own. I think like the most fun I had was during some downtime, which almost never happened. I started playing around with the game engine and thinking about like what I could do, because we would store text information in these external files that would then they were externalized, so it would be easy to do localization. So they would contain the labels, and they would contain like the educational content, and that would be pulled in, read in, and then inserted into the game. And I looked at it, and I thought, we could store other information in those things. And so I wrote like a scripting language. Well, I basically wrote something that was effectively a scripting language, and then I wrote an interpreter. And so that we could then, what we effectively, like one of my coworkers and I, one of my friends at work, we sat down, we developed a level editor. So we could create levels and then store them out and then read them back in. Which was not really like the model that we'd used up until this point with the company. And so our bosses saw this and they thought, hey, let's build a whole bunch of games around this. So what was kind of a cool concept suddenly became us working on 2 titles at the same time, where we did a Pirate Raider game and we did a Knights and Castles game. And so, so I've worked on, like, in the game industry, but I would not put myself in the same category of people that work these days in much more complicated game engines and much more complicated workflows and strategies, and whose titles span multiple years to get off the ground. So I experienced it in a microcosm, but it was enough that, like, I could then take what I've learned and apply it to building smaller games and have a sense of like what I needed to do, because I'd seen like the entire process through. Do we want to cook anything else? What do we got here? We got some firewood, we got some sticks. We got meat for now. We could cook those potatoes. Eat those potatoes. Lessen our load here. Okay. Might do that later. So what am I working on? Great question. So I think the one I've put the most work into. Well, actually, let's put it this way. I can at least get you. This was more like a proof of concept. But which had a fair bit of debate over whether it was successful or not. So, like, I think one of the few like completed games I've worked on for interactive fiction is this game called The Cave. You can read about it here. This is at the Interactive Fiction database. And what it was I decided I wrote a game where you start off in the darkness, in a cave system. You wake up and your memory is fuzzy. It's dark. You have no light source, so you need to find your way out. And you have to kind of puzzle your way through. And you find different things. You encounter different things and people. there's some small little puzzles to it, but what you don't really realize on your first playthrough is that your choices in how you choose to handle different situations are part of a behind-the-scenes D&D point buy system, and your choices are building your character in terms of, like, if you choose a stealthy approach, that's going to increase your dexterity. If you choose to cast a spell or try to learn magic, then that will increase your intelligence. If you try to talk your way out of a situation, you're going to increase your charisma. If you try to brute force your way through something, then that's strength. And if you suffer through like some incredibly cold or something else that's constitution based, we have that. And so that kind of plays through. And then as soon as all your points are used up in the point buy, then you just magically find your way out. And people are very disappointed, and I think rightly so, because as a game, it felt like your choices ultimately mattered but didn't matter. They mattered in terms of building your character. They didn't matter in terms of you finding your way out. And so I kind of took that critique to heart and thought, yeah, I think I wanted to build something that was like help a player figure out like a character that kind of mimicked, like they could make the decisions and it would lead to a character build. And there are like it's written in a way that there's something eerie and a little bit surreal, and very philosophical and poetic in moments. And so anyways, it was kind of a test to see like what I could do in this format. And that one I kind of rushed to finish for the interactive fiction competition that year. And so because the deadline was looming, there were a lot of things I cut that I just didn't get to implement. But there's there's random monsters that you can run into. Like if you go into a room, that's the lair, depending on this is the other thing that I didn't advertise and I should have advertised, is that every playthrough is different. There'll be elements that are randomized. So like there's a room where you find books and scrolls, and those are relatively random in terms of what you find. There's like a list of things I've pre-written, but what you happen to find that time. And I think likewise the map through the dungeon or through the cave system, the room-to-room connections are randomized at the start of the playthrough. So if you started again, you won't find, if you're in a room, it won't necessarily connect to the same rooms that it did last time. And so I wanted to create this ability to have more playthroughs, and so I did that. There's also like interactions, like some things that you can find or learn in one place that you can actually use in a different place. And some of them are unexpected, or there may be weird synergies between things. So I really had like a lot of things that I wanted to have as Easter eggs. And the thing I didn't consider for the competition is that the average person would play it once. And so all the cool things they built into the multiple playthrough just weren't picked up. So it's like, so I think being clever and subtle kind of worked against me in that particular case. But anyways, that was kind of the start of it. I had not finished, but written an earlier game called The Interview, which begins with you waking up, and after several months of looking for work after you'd finished your graduate degree, you begin the day by waking up with a job interview that you have to get to. And so you're excited because it's the first job interview for something that isn't retail. And so you're excited to get to the interview, but the whole game, the whole interactive game is about everything that happens that could potentially distract you from getting to the actual interview. And there's all these different, like, you're on a clock, but it's very easy. All the things that, there are so many things that could get you sidetracked and not get you to the interview. And then there's like this other element to the interview, which is that, so the secret that you don't know, and I'm going to kind of divulge because I'm not certain if I'll ever get around to finishing this particular game. But the secret that you don't know is that your person, your gender, your physicality, so your physical appearance, are actually randomized at the start of the playthrough. And there's only 2 places in the entire game in the interview where you could find out who you are. And one is at the very, very beginning. And if you do things out of order, you will miss the opportunity to see yourself. And then the other one is at the very end of the game, which I didn't finish writing, which is after the interview when you're leaving the room and you are leaving the building and you walk by a wall of mirrors and you catch a glimpse of yourself. And who you are in the interview actually impacts a lot of things in terms of the interactions you have with other characters throughout the story. So they will respond or interact with you in different ways, depending on if you're a man or a woman, other aspects of your presentation, if you're attractive or not attractive, all these different elements. And so I thought that would be like a really interesting critique of the assumption that we are, one, that it doesn't matter, but clearly it does. And then 2, the assumption of who we are in the game, that we usually default to assuming we are, if we have a visible avatar, a character, we then can see who they are. But if we're playing a first-person or second-person interactive fiction game, we assume on some level that we are that character, and that's who we identify with. And I wanted the player to identify with that character, but then also discover there are some things about going through the world that are very different. And so I thought that would be an interesting, thing to work into the game. So I do want to finish that game, but one of the things that happened is Twine, which is my main interactive fiction, language or platform that I use for writing these things, went through a major edition update. And so if I go back to do it, I pretty much have to redo it from scratch. But I kind of want to redo it from scratch anyways, because I've learned so much about like working with Twine and how to I have a better, I was just kind of hacking things together when I started out. And that's kind of true for the cave as well. But by the time I got to like my 3rd, 4th, 5th games, I had better strategies, better structures, was more confident in how I could organize the game so that it would be more efficiently written. But yeah, the interview I think is interesting. But if you really want to play through these, I can give you I might give you the secret link to where they are right now. This is like a really a temporary web link for housing links to the 3 games. The Cave, the Interview, and then the current one I'm working on is Into the Dark Woods, which I think is going to be a really good game. It's just a lot bigger than I had planned. Here, let me see if I can get you. I message you here. Oh, I want to whisper. That's what I want to do. Okay. So I just whispered to you the link for where those 3 games are. Into the Dark Woods is not finished. It's an ongoing project, and one of the problems is that it is gigantic in comparison with the other 2 games. There's so many more locations and so many more choices. And the whole game really is about, it begins with you waking up in a forest. It's kind of the sequel to the cave. You wake up in a forest at dusk, and very quickly you find yourself, stepping into, you exit the clearing and you find yourself with a road that runs east and west. And you have to make a choice about which direction you're going to go. And so originally it was going to be once you made that choice, you could not return. You would just keep going in one direction or the other direction. And you would always be wondering, what did I miss, right? Because I wanted it to be a nod to Robert Frost's The Road Not Taken, right? And so, which, of course, the irony about the poem, The Road Not Taken, is it's actually very tongue-in-cheek, because ultimately the speaker says that it actually wouldn't, he doesn't know if it would have made a difference, right? He says, the roads were practically identical. And in the end, who's to say whether or not it would have made a difference? So, and in Into the Dark Woods, there is something of that happens, is that you start off going in opposite, one direction, but you could make choices that might start circling you back, and you come out on the other side, or there's so it is a way in which everything branches out further and further and further, and lots of other locations. But at some point, for my own sanity, I had to start bringing some of those branches of the story converging back together. And you can eventually, if you take the longest possible route, you might find yourself in a dungeon, which is kind of like the final stage, if you ever get there. And then you would have to navigate through the dungeon rooms until you get to the final scene. But, as it stands, there's, I think, 790 passages of text, and there's something like, I want to say maybe around 60 or 70 different locations, and there are 51 different endings so far. It's just insane. It's just so much stuff. And there's, it really, like, Into the Dark Woods became a game that felt like I had taken the interactive fiction choice-based narrative structure and somehow turned it into a, more like a parser-driven game where you would just, you wander around, or more like an open sandbox, right? And you kind of move around in different ways. Choices still matter, but I did want people to have more options, and things that you find in one location. And there's some randomized loot in a few places. Combat is randomized in terms of your attack rolls and the monster's attack rolls and your ability to defend yourself. And those are all modified, but it's not super complex, but it is more than a simple, rock, paper, fist type of thing. Rock, paper, fist. Yeah. Rock, paper, stone, fist. What am I doing? But yeah, so there's, and maybe, like, you might catch me on one of my streams when I get some more work done on Into the Dark Woods. I'll probably do a little more of a demo playthrough through some of it, so people get a sense of where it is right now. Yeah, but no, if you have any feedback, I'm happy to hear it. Into the Dark Woods is also my experiment with including more artwork. Fact. Yeah. Yeah, so I like spent some time. I like rewrote the game to have like a more cool visual presentation for it. Trying to think if we can pull that up here for a second. Thanks. Thanks. Let's see here. Yeah, let's see if I show you a quick view of this. Go here. Projects. So, yeah, hold on a second here. Figure out how best to do this. Oops. We want that, but I also want this. Okay. That's the wrong one. Okay, so yeah, this is what I ended up doing with Into the Dark Woods, art style wise. See if I got- Yeah, yeah, it looks like that, and yeah, so that was Into the Dark Woods. Then you go in there, and then there's like this introduction that that kind of brings us into the game, and then kind of arrive at last at the and this is kind of the standard sort of default screen from then on. So you get like the story passages, you get like an indication of the time of day, you get the location, and you get your choices. Yeah. So, yeah. And then it tracks your inventory as well, you know, as you go along. Okay, so anyways, we'll get back to the main thing at hand here. Let's see. People came to watch The Long Dark, so let's go to The Long Dark. Okay, we still have no... Why are we walking around with shoes off? That doesn't make any sense. No, we're good for now. Okay, I guess we could try reading something. Look at how many sewing kits. This is ridiculous. How many sewing kits do we have here? Do we need all of them? Probably not right away. Let's drop a couple here. Let's level up our cooking skill here.
Man, I could eat anything.
No. Well, got a little bit further. Make certain we find our way back to our bed. We're just at our bed.
Getting weak.
Yeah. That's the table. We were not at the mattress. Okay. Yeah, it's so easy to get to be a pack rat in this game. It's so easy. Do we have anything else we can do that? We can do that. Knew we had more things we could prepare. Let's just sit around in our sleeping bag or lie on this mattress and just craft things in the dark. Let's see. Do we have bandages? We have bandages. We have teas. Got potatoes. Still to do. Oh, we do have some leather. We can do some repairs. Okay. Okay, where are we at right now? We are on day 5. One more day to go. Then we leave. Yeah, people keep calling it PV Store Cave or something to that effect, or like the Thompson's Cave. It's actually not by Thompson's
Didn't
Cave
get anything.
or Thompson's. It's the cave that's by. You go down the road to where the truck is crushed by the tree. And you turn left, and you go deep into where there's eventually get down to that section where the deer carcass is. That's that cave, and people used to call it like the Store Cave or like the Thompson's Cave. And when I was first starting out, I was like, where is this? I don't see it anywhere near Thompson's Crossing. It's actually not. It's sort of, but not really. We are in Interloper right now. So we should give you a little bit of a rundown. I play primarily Interloper, and I usually do my own challenges. So what we're doing is this. It's called Roll With It, and it's something I developed a while ago. At least now, been almost 2 years now. So basically, the point of it is that you have to visit every single region in the entire game, but the catch is that you don't know how long you're going to stay. Until you arrive. So when you arrive, you roll a die and it tells you how many days you're going to stay. So during the first 50 days, it's 1 to 10 days in each major region, like Coastal Highway or Mystery Lake or Mountain Town, and 1 to 4 days in each transition zone or micro region. And so those would include Crumbling Highway, and Winding River, but also include things like the Milton Basin. I count as a separate area. I count the climb down section between Milton and Mystery Lake. You know, where you have to climb down, and there's a little tiny area in there, and usually there's one wolf and a couple rabbits, and then you climb back up and you go through the cave system to get out near trappers. That climb down area is its own little region, which is a pain, but it is what it is. And so after 50 days, the die roll increases and it becomes 1 to 20 days in each major region and 1 to 6 days in each transition zone. At day 100, transition zones become 1 to 8 days, and at day 150, they become 1 to 10 days. So you really don't want to be going through transition zones at the end of your run, because you could get stuck there for 10 days, and none of those places have enough food to survive. And this is every time you pass through a region. So if you were going through Pleasant Valley on your way to Timberwolf Mountain and Ash Canyon, and then needed to come back, you would then have to go through, if you went to Ash Canyon, came back to Timberwolf, you'd roll again in Timberwolf. So you could get 20 days in Timberwolf and then go to Ash Canyon for, let's say, 5, and then you come back to Timberwolf and you roll 20 again, and you're now there for another 20. And you keep going and going. Sometimes you have a very big region and you roll a 1, and you've got 24 hours. That's it. You cannot leave early and you cannot leave late. So you have to wait until the calendar switches over. So like when I go here and I check day survived, when this day turns to 6, because we are leaving on day 6, that is when I'm permitted to leave. So if this is based on our spawn time. So if we spawn early in the day, then it gives us a lot of time until midnight to get out, because we have to be out by midnight. But if we spawned at dusk, then you only have about 3 or 4 hours to get out of the region. And so then you really have to plan. You really have to think, okay, the day before I go, I need to already be at my exit point. And then I just have to really plan carefully so I can slip out at the right time. If there's weather problems, if you get sick, if anything happens, you still have to leave. So I have left forlorn muskeg at night in an aurora going into Broken Railroad. It's the worst thing to do, but that was when the date turned over, and I had to be out by midnight. It's like, and I managed to get through. Yeah, so it's really, really crazy. So I have succeeded exactly once. I have made the first time I did this. So about a year and a half ago, I was doing this, and I think at that point, midway through the run, they released Zone of Contamination, and so I got that new area to add into it. So I was already out in the Forsaken Airfields, and it was already having to add another region, which I'd never visited before. And when you know it, I rolled a 20. And that was like I had to spend 20 days in Forsaken Airfield, then 20 days in Zone of Contamination, knowing nothing about the zone, and somehow survived and got through. And then my last region on that run was Black Rock, and I rolled like something like 13 days, and I managed to make it through. So that's my 303 day run. And it's technically still alive. I could go back and play that run, but I generally don't have as much fun with late game runs unless I have a challenge. So that's so we decided at the start of 2026 we would revisit this challenge and see how we could do. If I learned anything new about regions, if I learned anything new about strategies. Could I do better than 303 days to visit every single region? It was not a very efficient route. I crossed through some areas multiple times. Could I come up with a more efficient route? Could I get to a bow faster? Things like that. Yeah. And there were at least 3 times I got all the way to the last region, and my last region happened to be Black Rock again, and I died in Black Rock. At the verge of finishing the entire challenge. So that 303 win feels awesome. So yeah. I don't know. Some people want to go for 500 days or 1,000 days. I find I get bored after 100 days unless there's something like this I have to push through. Okay. Let's see, what do we want to do? Okay, I think we still have enough. Yeah, let's go ahead and let's boil some more water. Cook up our peaches. Yeah, I've put in a lot of hours now. It's actually kind of terrifying how many hours I have in the game now. And really, it's been over the last, I'd say,
Perfect.
last 4 or 5 years that I've really put in the extra hours. Hey, Long Mile. Yeah, things are going well. Other than the fact we still don't have a bedroll. That is a little discouraging. And we have not found a hammer, which is not surprising. Things like that happen. But the bedroll is a little discouraging. I would really love to get a bedroll. Let's see what we want. I want to drop this guy. We'll also throw out a shout out to Long Mile. Long Mile's doing Call of Duty.
Thank you.
Boom. What?
Yes, be prepared for anything.
Yeah, I
They give me
definitely have
Hey,
scaled
glitch.
back
Look at that.
how much I stream. A few years ago I was streaming pretty much every day, and usually for 2 or 3 hours. These days, I like stream maybe 3 times a week,
Wow.
and for around an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours sometimes. But I just find like that's my capacity right now. I'm working full time, and I'm running 2 D&D games and playing in a third. So I've got plenty of stuff going on already. Okay, so what else do we want? I want to cook those potatoes. Let's put those potatoes down. Otherwise, they're just sitting around in inventory, and you can't eat the raw potato. Apparently. Yeah, there are other things in life, and some of them turn out to be more important than streaming. Imagine that. Okay, let's see. You got 2 rifles? Wow. Ooh.
I could eat anything right now.
Seriously, yeah? Well, there's one thing I don't have to worry about here is finding a rifle, because there aren't any. Oh, we should have some herbal tea now. Yeah, when I first started playing Interloper, so I had spent, I want to say about 700 hours in Stalker, and I'd spent some time playing the, Wintermute, the story mode. And then I started playing Interloper, and I was so out of my depth. I kept dying. Some of my deaths were, like, so comical. I once had a run where I started off Timberwolf Mountain at dusk, right immediately before a blizzard, and I somehow, within the first 30 seconds, triggered a wolf who then charged me just as the blizzard set in, and, like, I just died instantly, 30 seconds into the run. I was like, what did I do? That was a harsh introduction to Interloper. It's like, boom. Just like that. It wasn't the first Interloper run, but it was definitely the most brutal start. And then I had other ones where I started at Black Rock, and I was... Was it Black Rock, or was it Bleak Inlet, maybe? I'm trying to remember. But I think it was Bleak. I think I started Bleak, and I I had I triggered a Timberwolf pack, and I started running like crazy to avoid them. And in my panic to get away from them, I accidentally ran and fell into a river and died instead. That was pretty bad. It's like, oops. Not work as I had planned. I mean, I still hate dealing with Timberwolves. Alright, how are we doing for water? Now we got plenty of water.
I'm not sure I can carry much more.
How are we doing here? I think the last time I was here, I had no torch, and I was desperate to avoid wolves that were in the town. This time I don't see the the wolves, and I also have torches, so and matches. So I think we can search the rest of this place. Hey, Laurent, welcome in. See you. Okay, let's see. I remember when I first played Wintermute, it was so I was like, what am I doing? Because it was like back then that's how you learned the game, right? And so I really hadn't played open, sandbox. I just started off playing Wintermute, and what am I doing? It was rough. It was rough. My first story playthrough. Yeah. Yeah, I got much better, but yeah. I think I actually got frustrated at one point. It was probably around the bear hunt, and I ended up taking a break and tried Open Sandbox and fell in love with Open Sandbox. I said, why was I playing the story mode again? And it was like, oh, because I do like a good story, and so I took a long break. I kept playing Open Sandbox, survival, and then finally went back and I decided I'd play through the story mode. And they'd made some changes, and I had to restart the story mode and play through that again. And then I played all the way through, and then I took a break again, and then I went back later on, and I think last year I played all the way through, finally finished episode 4. And then this time round, they released episode 5, and I took a long time before I decided to play it. And I started playing episode 5, and I have to say, based on what I've seen from other people's streams and based on my own, experiences early in episode 5, I could already see I'm not going to be happy, So I don't know if I'll finish it or if I'll put it off again and maybe 2 years from now I'll finally get around to finishing it. All-time favorite story is Red Dead Redemption. Okay, yeah. No, that's a great game. I just happen to be terrible at riding a horse. I think it's the controller. Yeah. No, I think the struggle Hinterland found themselves in was that they needed to wrap up the story, but I don't think they had plotted the ending when they started the game. And therefore, in order to make it all work, some threads and some elements just never get properly resolved. Other things are these loose threads that
Eat soon.
probably shouldn't have been introduced, and then they had to deal with, you know. But I think the biggest problem that I saw out of the parts that I watched and also played through, I feel like there is, and I'm guilty of this too, is that sometimes you develop a gameplay mechanic or a mini game, and you've spent so much time and effort working on it, you've got to justify it. And so you end up modifying the story to explain why we're spending so much time, or to force the player to engage with this particular minigame or this particular mechanic. Even if it doesn't make sense to spend that much time with it. So there are, and I'm not going to spoil too much here, but there is like a couple things in the very end of the game, not where I'm at, much further on, that you can tell they spent a long time figuring out how to do something, and once they figured out how to do it, they kind of felt compelled to create a longer sequence where you had to use that particular mechanic or that particular, like I call it, mini game. Because otherwise, why did we spend so much money developing all these animations and this mechanic? And so it then means that you have to make it longer than it probably should be. And you have to make the circumstance appear over and over again where you have to do this particular mechanic, even if it makes no sense. Yeah, and I think the other thing was that they also they couldn't really close it off because they wanted the sequel to fit into the world. So I kind of see how they did that, but I don't know. That didn't work. Yeah, I'm really not certain. I think most likely I will continue to play. If I get to Black Frost, I will probably play it the same way I played The Long Dark, which is solo. Yeah. Oh. And maybe once in a blue moon, try some multiplayer component, but yeah. Yeah, in the Quiet Apocalypse, I don't trust anyone. No one. Not a single person. steal the Bible. Yeah. Okay, I think we're going to head out. Okay, yeah, I'm going to wrap up here, so maybe we'll come over and raid you if you're up and running by then. I still have to do my usual wrap-up sequence, which is, okay, let's see where we're at. We are day 5. Okay. Wow. Okay, here's our save. Okay. Let me update the... Okay. We'll pick this up next time. But like I said, I'm on vacation, or not vacation, I'm away for a conference beginning tomorrow, and I won't be back until Saturday night. So 1 week from now is when I'll be back. We are going to finish the way we usually finish, which is with a poem. So I'm going to read something. Yeah, if you missed that, I am a writer. I'm the author of 2 books of poetry, in addition to being a former computer games programmer and now a data librarian. I am a poet. So we'll read something. Let's go choose something. Why does our poem chooser not work? Poem chooser is not working. Okay, so we will just choose something. Random. Okay, let's go with very appropriate. This is from my first book of poetry, Lost Country is Sight. Let me get the cover to show it properly. Lost Country is Sight, published by Nhinga Press way back in 2008, winner of the 2007 Philip Levine Prize. And this is Seeking Shelter at minus 50 degrees. Which is one of the poems inspired by part of my childhood in Saskatchewan, and which feels very much like it could belong right in the world of the long dark. So here is Seeking Shelter at minus 50 degrees. Trying to thaw, we sat by the dim warmth of the wood-burning stove, brittle as our clothes, frozen, our few words a visible fog. Outside the thin wooden walls, the wind-driven branches tapped like blind men, or perhaps a prisoner in solitary, testing the depth of his world. Down the North Gravel Road, an abandoned farmhouse full of imagined lights, whispers the shuffling of raccoons, old papers. In the gullies, ghost cars, still shining like new, rested where they were thrown, miles away from anywhere. And far above, stars, the color of snow, each a lone boat drifting in the dark sea. So this poem was inspired by winter camping when I was a kid in Scouts, and we'd go to northern Saskatchewan for our winter camp, and it was cold. It was so cold. And I remember it was so cold, and I've told this story a number of times. I had these leather mitts that were quite warm, unless they got wet. And they got wet. And they froze solid. And they were so stiff and solid that when I went into the cabin and we had the wood burning stove, I took them off my hands. I could tap them against the side of the stove, and they sounded like cowbells, right? They just kind of had that dull, clunking bell tone. It's like so bad. But we did go out one particular camp. Some of the older boys were aware of had seen earlier in the day that there was an abandoned farmhouse, really just the wreck of a farmhouse on the property that we were camping on. And we had like arrangements. Our troop had made arrangements with local farmers to use this land and this particular cabin site. And so we went out, a group of us, and it was lit by the moon, and otherwise it was pretty dark, and especially when the clouds went over the moon. And we went out to this old abandoned farmhouse, and the more brave and nervy of the kids decided that they would go inside to kind of poke around and explore. And they came back with reports that it was really spooky and they heard weird noises. So there's that. But we also, and I didn't understand this back then because I didn't grow up on a farm. I had friends that were on farms, but I did not grown up on a farm. And we were out there in Saskatchewan. And on this particular stretch of farmland, there was close to one of the roads, there was a whole section with all these cars from the 1940s and 50s. And I didn't really understand. Years later, watching American Pickers, I start to realize that a lot of farmers collect old vehicles and then just kind of park them on part of their farmland, like a just random collection of rusting, cars. But by the light of the moon and in sort of the imagination of young boys, it looked like they were practically new. And it was just weird. I was like, why are there all these cars huddled together out here? And so I kind of imagined them falling off of a train crossing country and ended up stranded out here. And I've come to realize, really, no, that's not how it happened at all. It's like someone just collects old cars and then parks them all together someplace on their farm land. But yeah. So that's kind of behind the poem. What's going on. The ghost cars and the stars up in the sky. If you're ever in Saskatchewan, what's super remarkable about that place is how clear the skies are. It is a very large province with a very tiny population. And so many places, if you get outside the city, have almost no light pollution. And when you look up at the night sky, there are like thousands upon thousands, hundreds of thousands of points of light up there. It's so filled with stars, and it's stunning on a clear night to look up and see all that. And then it also makes you feel incredibly small because it's so flat through most of the province that you really have your entire field of vision when you look up. Your whole vision is all night sky. When you stand up, it's really like the horizon line and no obstructions and just sky. And you as this tiny point underneath it all. And so, I just wanted to capture that with that poem. So. And then, of course, the absolutely brutal, bitter cold of the place. Not all the time at minus 50, but boy, often enough that you know what that feels like. So I think it's really funny. There have been times when I was when I went back and I lived in Saskatchewan for a few years. 2019 to 2023 was back in Saskatchewan, and there were a few nights in the wintertime where we were colder in real life than the game was. It's like I'm playing through, it's minus 30 in the game, and it's minus 50. With wind chill, it's minus 50 outside. It's like this I'm warming up. I'm warming up inside the game. Have I ever heard of Isle Royale? Isle Royale. Is this Isle Royale? Is that part of, like, yeah, I was going to say, is that part of the Great Lakes area? I guess it is. An island. Here we go, Wikipedia. An island in the Great Lakes in the northwest of Lake Superior and part of Michigan. The island, 450 smaller islands, and the surrounding waters make up Isle Royale. It is the 5th largest lake island in the world. Wow. It's a national park with a tiny number of people that are still residents there. Interesting. Are we going there for something? You did a hiking trip there. You fed fish guts to a timber wolf with your bare hands. That's impressive. Or foolish. As long as those timber wolves aren't crazed like the ones in the game. I do think, like, when you see pictures of actual, like, wolves in the wild, you realize how big those things are. It's like they're not like the domesticated dog at all. They're actually pretty. They're bigger. They're bigger. I have seen moose, actual moose. A few times when I was driving cross country in Canada, and usually in BC, I'd not literally run into a moose, but I would see them at the side of the road. And, most often I'd see, like, the juvenile moose. And even the not adult version of the moose is still pretty big. Yeah. Okay. Let us figure out who we can go raid. But this has been fun. And I look forward to seeing you all in a week's time. Let's see. Okay, so who do we got here? Let's see who we got. And Hydrate is doing Misery Start. Slid Holmes is doing Misery. Everyone wants to do Misery. Cheerforge is over 1,000 days in Interloper. Oh, Interloper. Red 5 is playing probably Interloper. Bloody Cactus is up. We could go support Bloody Cactus. Yeah, let's do that. Okay. The Bloody Cactus is one of our regulars in here. Oh no, okay. Well, we'll catch you again in a long while. And I'm going to make certain I follow Bear. So we'll hop over. We'll hop over to Bloody Cactus. And we'll be back in about a week. Thank you all for hanging out here. Stay tuned for our next TLT streamer. Thank you all, and yeah, hope to see you again, Bear. Let me know what you think of the games.